We are back for another season of MasterCoaches Wednesday Weekly Buzz and our after show, Buzz Reaction. I'm Ruth Nelson, joined by Hall of Famers Mick Haley and Bob Bertucci, and bringing you the most current issues and trends in volleyball. For our first-time viewers, you will find our show to have leaders in our sport join us weekly to discuss topics that are current and ones that are affecting most of us during this challenging time. Our newsflash: JVAvolleyball.org just started a diversity and inclusion and a mental performance series for coaches. NHFS, 14 states now playing winter and spring high school volleyball, and club volleyball now taking and talking about how to begin testing for COVID. For those that missed last month's AVCA Virtual Convention, you can still have access to 100 hours of virtual training, register for the on-demand content, and have 30 days to watch the sessions. We'll provide you details on our 2020 MASTCH code at the end of our show. Did you know, between Mick and Brian, they have won 7 national championships, and Bob is head men's coach at Sacred Heart University. You put over 100 years of experience, and you see a dedicated group of coaches that love sharing their knowledge and experiences. Today's topics will cover the AVCA Convention, name, image, and likeness updates, D1 men's and women's spring season, and our new format, how you can be a guest on our Buzz Reaction after show. So first, let's talk with former Olympic coach Mick Haley, who will begin our 2020 overview of the AVCA Convention, and Bob will provide us an overview of his favorite sessions. Mick, let's go to you first. How would you describe the AVCA Virtual Convention and your thoughts?
Well, after watching it and being involved in it, I thought it was brilliant. I got more out of this than any of the conventions I've attended as far as knowledge and information about various parts of the game. And what I really enjoyed, well, there are 2 things I really enjoyed. One, you know that I've been trying to specialize in teaching serve receive passing to anyone. Brian and I and Bob and you have said all along that we think anyone can pass serve up to a point. And the whole goal was to refine this so much that we could teach anyone who was out there to pass a ball under certain circumstances. So I was able to watch not only the presentation that I did, but Hugh McCutcheon's presentation, Luca's presentation, and a couple of other coaches spoke about passing serve, all of which hit on points that I was able to pick up and put into my presentation, or will put into my presentation. And primarily things like words that created pictures for me immediately, I thought were so important and were used so skillfully by the other coaches that I couldn't believe I hadn't done this before and paid more attention to the presentations. But being isolated, not in a convention center, and having my computer and just me here, I could focus and concentrate on each presentation. So that's the first takeaway that I had from the virtual convention. The second takeaway is I loved some of the presenters, and one of my favorites, again, MasterCoaches, who talked about learning theory. And you know, there are proponents out there of people that think that all you do is play the game to learn how to play. And yet we've maintained that a number of repetitions are important for a number of different reasons. Maybe not in a 6-on-6 situation repetition. Basically, those repetitions develop technique, they develop self-confidence. They also give the learner an over and over and over experience to be able to be good. And I particularly liked Giovanni Gaetti's presentation. Giovanni has been the Dutch Olympic coach, the German Olympic coach. He has been one of the top coaches in Turkey up to this point. Jamie Morrison worked with him a bunch and maybe is back with him in Turkey. I'm not sure about that, but he worked with him in Turkey for a while. And so Giovanni did a whole presentation on repetition that you can use as warm-up for getting better. And he used all of the skills, but he did have a particular part of that was passing. But I really liked that because I wanted coaches to see that there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak, and that playing the game is obviously good and it teaches you from the 6-on-6 experience. But this particular warm-up he says he does every day, and then he adds things to it. I really enjoyed that presentation. I don't know how the rest of you felt about those presentations. Maybe you saw some things that you really liked.
Yeah. Well, you know, Mick, the other thing you mentioned that you, with all the experience you have, all 4 national championships, and you still are learning. Why is that?
I just want to get it right. I want to be the best at doing it. If I was an athlete, and that's what I learned from being the Olympic coach, is the athletes demand that you help them break it down and break it down again and break it down again, because they want to be perfect. They want to, they want to be the best at what they're doing. They want to get the best salary, and they want to win the gold medal. And the athletes really demand that if you're going to coach them, that you be good. You see this in the NFL, you see this in the NBA, you see it in the NHL, in the soccer leagues. We shouldn't be any different. So we should continually try to become better at what we're doing. And I want to be the best at giving instruction to forearm passing right now. That's my present goal.
Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, now, Bob, I know you enjoyed conducting your own session, but what was your take on your first year virtual convention experience?
Well, Ruth, I think I have the same kind of feeling as Mick has about the virtual, convention. When we go in person, I mean, there's a lot of pluses to the in-person convention, all right? But a lot of us have been around, quite a while, are happy to see and enjoy, catching up with all the people that we've known over the years. We get distracted by many things. I could tell you the one plus of the virtual clinic, or a couple of the pluses, were I got a chance just to study some volleyball again, and it was enjoyable to sit at home and be in a very relaxed environment and just, tune in anytime I wanted to. You didn't have the issue where if you're at the regular convention, you have to be seated right in the middle of the, you can't hear the speakers, I mean, it's just different things that would happen. I thought it was great from that standpoint. In terms of the presentations, I mean, there were some, thought-provoking types of presentations. I'll talk about John Cook's presentation on the pandemic forces spring volleyball. Whether I 100% agree with what he had to say, I thought, we've had John on the show a couple of times, in 2020. He's done a great job at Nebraska. He's thoughtful. I thought he did a great presentation, and talking about, the pluses of moving the season. I think there's negatives to it too, but I thought, he's thinking outside of the box a little bit, and I thought that was very well done. You mentioned, my presentation and your presentation on blocking. Of course, we try to break it down to the simplest form. And I think we did that real well with our presentation, but it was interesting to go look at others that also did blocking, same as Mick looked at the passing. Travis Hudson, who from Western Kentucky, I've seen his teams and played against his teams a couple of times when I was coaching at Lehigh University, and I was impressed with his program. I think he does a great job. I thought I liked his presentation. Not everything that he said I agreed with, but I thought he had a method to his madness, and he obviously puts teams out there year after year that does a good job. And then I watched Jamie Morrison's. I thought his presentation was outstanding. Just the way it was delivered, in the virtual format. very professional. And
Okay,
again,
Bob, I want you to hold those thoughts for Buzz Reaction because we have other topics we're going to cover today.
okay.
Mick. All right, Mick, let's go for it.
Seriously, Bob liked it so much he could talk the whole 30 minutes.
I know.
You got me going here,
All right, Mick, let's go to the hottest topic, NIL. It seems like we've been talking about this for months. So what do you think, Mick?
Well, it's gone full circle, and name, image, and likeness is what NIL stands for. And if you saw the executive director of the NC2A come out just yesterday or the day before yesterday saying he was so disappointed that the NC2A put off voting on this. I just don't get Emmert. He wants to do everything to look good for the players. He said he's sorry the players are going to be so disappointed and so upset and yada, yada, yada. This is such a quagmire of problems, and it hasn't been thought through. Let's just go through a couple of things very simply.
Okay.
First of all, we have states now that have passed rules on athletes being able to retain, well, they don't make the rules on eligibility, but athletes be able to market themselves for dollars coming down the road. California, Florida, I think maybe New York or New Jersey. I can't remember.
Yeah, 6 states so far.
But they have individual rules which are going to be different from each other. Then we have Congress, who was going to pass some rules, but oops, they lost the Senate control. Now there's one party in charge, and now it seems like they're not as aggressive. They're not thinking as aggressively about jumping behind the NIL. Then I saw on D1 Ticker, if you read D1 Ticker every day on the internet, athletic directors are starting to say, how much revenue are we going to lose from this? I thought that's the first time somebody was really honest and said, how much revenue are we going to lose? And then finally, before you kick in with something I know you want to talk about this, we have women's volleyball players that are actually making serious plans to market themselves and make money here. And we heard from coaches all fall that we interviewed that, I don't think volleyball is going to be too much involved. It's going to be more about the football and the basketball players. I don't think so. I think the women athletes for sure are going to have a real opportunity here. So what have you heard to add to this?
Well, on January 6th, 2021, Dr. Kristen Nyhoff, Executive Director of the National Federation of High School Coaches Association, states there is troublesome issue on the horizon. However, that if addressed appropriately, could have a long-term negative impact on education-based interscholastic sports and performing arts than terrible but more temporary impact of any novel coronavirus. Interesting statement. Now, this is the second one. The issue of NIL and how it could impact high school students is huge. The battle for amateurism perhaps has been lost at the collegiate level, but it must be maintained to preserve the greatest programs in this country, education-based interscholastic sports in our nation's high schools. Wow. Think of this. This is going to be an ongoing conversation for all of us, but guess what? We got to jump to the next topic. Bob.
Well, let's throw one other thing in first before we go, and that is that on D1 Ticker, they also pointed out that schools are now hiring special people to provide either internet capabilities or marketing capabilities to work with the athletes. And they're using this as a big recruiting device.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe Bob can talk about that in the buzz.
Yeah. Bob, let's turn now to the status on men's collegiate volleyball and what and how are conferences handling the upcoming season as well as the NCAA championships?
Well, a couple of things on men's volleyball side, I think that's interesting. Well, first off, you have different start times for the fall sports, the women's volleyball, as compared to the men's volleyball being spring sports, which of course, has a few people upset. that they couldn't get started at the same time. You know, I think that's a little bit of an issue. But then a bigger issue probably is the fact that there is no rhyme or reason to when anybody's starting. It's all being done, you know, either dictated by the state and what the guidelines are with the coronavirus, or within a university.
Okay.
You know, looking at the EIVA, for example, you know, majority of the EIVA has now started their preseason. All right. Sacred Heart, we're not going to be starting until the 25th of January. All right. Wow. I think you're seeing that in a lot of different, you know, different conferences. You know, the Big Ten may have started back in the middle of, you know, end of December, all right, in between Christmas and New Year. All right. Mm-hmm. But, you know, maybe the NEC or the Patriot League or some of these other conferences are not going to get started, you know, for quite a while yet.
So what is actually the season for men's right now? What's its start date, and when is the NC final championships?
Well, the start date, there's some consistency in that January 22nd is the earliest you can start competition. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's the same for the women. But there is no dictated start date necessarily for them to start training. And it's going to go up till national championships. It's going to be the end of April for the women. It's going to be, you know, the first weekend in May for the men.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that gives our viewers at least an idea, because we haven't gotten a chance to really talk much about men's volleyball. Are there new programs that they've added now for men?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, Ruth. Just today, the announcement was made at Fairleigh Dickinson University, all right, that they're adding a men's volleyball program. So
that's a D1 program too.
It's a Division I program. It's in the NEC. That'll give us four men's teams in the NEC right now. And that'll add another 2 teams to the EIVA as it stands right now. So I think that's great growth, you know, to have. Of course, there's a lot of Division III programs that have started or on the cusp of starting here pretty soon, even though we're in a pandemic.
All right. Okay, that sounds great. Now, Mick, what's your take on women's spring season as well as the NCAA championships? And will it happen? And what conferences are leading the way?
Yeah, it's all over the board, as you can imagine. But we've had, for instance, Penn State in the Big Ten's been practicing, I understand, since the 1st of January. You haven't heard much about the Pac-12, but we have found out the Pac-12 does have a schedule. They just haven't put it out yet. They're playing a 22 match home schedule. They're allowing 1 additional match to be played outside of the conference. Uh-huh. The way this works is if you took UCLA, for instance, might host Cal at home on Friday and Sunday, and then or maybe Thursday and Saturday, I'm not sure the days, and then they would go to Stanford, who's the travel partner of Cal, and they would play up there on the 2 days of the following week, or some kind of schedule. Mm-hmm. So they really have a schedule. They are practicing, but the weirdest thing is going on like in Los Angeles, where COVID is at its peak and just going crazy. Mm-hmm. They said a person gets COVID there. 1 person every 10 seconds gets COVID in Southern California. And you have the Keck School of Medicine telling USC they could just start practicing just 2 days ago, while the medical school there at UCLA has told them they can practice since January 1st. So they've been practicing since the 1st. USC has not been practicing before the 10th. Penn State has been going on the East Coast in the Big Ten. We understand the SEC is fully engaged in practicing for the rest of their season, but we haven't heard how the SEC is going to facilitate this, because they played half to a third of their schedule in the fall, and now much better matchups are scheduled for this spring. But can they add additional schools? And then what's the Sun Belt going to do, who played their entire schedule and finished? And they were looking forward to playing some Big 12, some Big 10, some SEC teams, some ACC teams. And ACC is the same way. They split their schedule. They played in pods in the fall, as we reported and listened to their coaches on our show. And now this spring, it's my understanding they won't be in pods. They'll have a prescribed schedule and we'll go, but no one's made an announcement yet. So it's pretty darn interesting.
So yeah, a lot of the schools are just requiring conference play only. You know, they're not allowing that outside play.
Let me ask both of you this. I've also heard a number of schools that have asked their athletes whether they felt comfortable and safe enough to play. And a lot of your D1 schools are not going to play competition. They're going to practice only.
I think that's true. I'm not sure it's true because the athletes have said they don't want to play. But there are some athletes saying they don't play. There's no question about that. I think there are also some conferences that are allowing their teams to play, but outside of conference.
Yeah.
They don't have an official conference schedule. They're not sponsoring a schedule. And then there are some conferences that have just shut down. But we need to follow up on this on the Master Coaches Weekly Buzz, because we'll be interviewing all of these coaches here in the next 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, and we'll be able to find out exactly what the schedules are, what the primary purpose is. And right now, the last thing I'll add on this is that the NC2A has told the schools that they're open for bids to host the tournament, not the championships, but the playoff sites, and that they're going to predetermine these playoff sites from the bids they get. And I assume that's going to be who has the best testing, who can accommodate X number of teams and that sort of thing. And I do know that there are a number of schools who are absolutely petitioning to try to be picked to host this part of the tournament.
Now, Bob, I have a question for you. You have a men's and women's program at Sacred Heart. How are you dealing with practices, competition dates, and those kind of, and will you travel ever together?
Well, we do have both teams, and we're both starting at the same time at Sacred Heart. And the women are playing during the week, and they're actually playing double headers. If you can believe that, on all their matches.
Wow.
To minimize the exposure the athletes are having, to other people and outside, groups.
Bob, does that mean 2 matches in one day?
2 matches back to back.
In one day?
In one day, yeah.
Wow.
Now the men, we're doing it over, one like in the afternoon and one, an hour or 2 later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, wow. Back to back. And it's during the school day, so they'll probably, as much as possible, try to commute from location to location when it's possible and not stay overnight. Now, St. Francis, Pennsylvania women's have just come out and canceled their whole season, which is the furthest trip for the NEC schools to make.
Wow.
So people don't really know this, I think, but your school has 33 varsity sports? Is that
34 now? We just added women's wrestling.
34 varsity sports. I'm not sure people understand the magnitude of what's going on, but you're an institution that has a large enrollment that handles very many sports, 34, even more than Stanford is now proposing that they go down to. They want to be less than 34. You're going to be one of the top schools in the country, you and Ohio State, offering that many sports.
Yeah, I can't wait to do the COVID testing. Okay, guys, we got our next topic going. Mick, talk about next week and who we have coming on and what's going to be discussed.
Well, I'm excited. Kathy DeBoer, Executive Director, and our czar of volleyball, has agreed to come on again and really give us some insight on the virtual convention. There was so much talk and in my opinion, a lot of apathy by our coaches not signing up for the virtual convention. There were 2 reasons to sign up for this convention. 1, the quality of people was the best we've ever had. And 2, it was support for the AVCA, our coaches association, and our leader throughout the country in not only collegiate volleyball, but goes all the way down. We haven't seen any kind of leadership like this from the United States Volleyball Association. but we have seen this from the AVCA, and it touches so many coaches. It was so important for those coaches to get involved. So I hope Kathy DeBoer will be able to tell us about the convention. Was it a success? Would she consider continuing with a virtual process in the future, because so many coaches that did sign up liked it? We've got a lot of questions to ask her, and we want to ask her about the spring season, and we want to ask her about what she knows about the tournament, both sand, women's indoor, and men's collegiate. We got 3 tournaments this spring to talk to her about there. So we have a lot of questions for her and how we're going to move forward through this pandemic.
Okay, that sounds great. And you know, I'm not going to give you any more because I know you're going to continue to tell me some more that we all need to be hearing. All right, here we go, Bob. Now, this is exciting. We've changed the format of our Buzz show. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going to happen?
Yeah, Ruth, I think it's interesting. You know, we've kind of looked at how we did it last year, and you know, put in a couple of changes. First thing will be, well, of course, this week we're going to have a little special feature on our Buzz Reaction right in the beginning, a little video. But moving forward, we're going to have different companies coming on for the first 10 minutes of Buzz Reaction, keeping us up to date with the newest trends in the sport of volleyball and newest products out there. You know, then we'll be doing some reaction to our Wednesday weekly Buzz for a few minutes before we go on to actually having some guests, you know, some, you know, high school coaches, you know, regular people out there that we've met through our clinics, talking a little bit about the clinics, but also giving them an opportunity to ask us questions and work on specific things that are relevant to them in their particular settings, high school, club, and so forth.
Okay, I'm your #1 fan. I've been watching every week. I want to get on the show. How do I do it?
Well, I think one of the ways is you can go ahead and do Instagram.
Okay.
All right. And you'll tell us a little bit more about that. Of course, you can always go on our website and just, you know, fill out the information that you want to, you know, subscribe to the membership, and then, you know, it's free. And then we'll have your information, and we'll start to log people in to come on to the show. All
right. So
did we do this because we just got tired of talking to each other?
No, we're trying to avoid Ruth's questions. That's what we're trying to do.
You know what? You guys, I can't even hardly believe you. You are just absolutely, you know what? I was really nice to you guys. Okay, so we are going on. We're going to talk about all the other things going on with MasterCoaches. You can book a MasterCoaches custom virtual clinic today for you, your fellow coaches, or your team. Please head over to the Instagram account, VD MasterCoaches, click on our bio, and click on the virtual clinic link. Remember, all of our weekly Buzz shows are on YouTube, and you may access these by going directly to our Instagram account. Click on the bio and enjoy listening to all the leaders in our sport address current issues and trends. Follow us on Facebook, Volleyball MasterCoaches, Instagram and Twitter, VD MasterCoaches. Now, we've got to give a special shout out to our partners, SNA Sports and Baden Sports. And thanks to our content providers, NFHS, JVA, Coaches Insider, and AVCA. Now, you may still register, but of course, there's a click to this. For on-demand content for 2020 AVCA Virtual Convention, you go to avcaconvention.org, drop in your promotional code, 2020 MASTCH, which will provide you 30 days to watch over 100 hours of virtual sessions. And guess what? The promotion offer is only good until tomorrow to sign up, February 14th. Now, a very special shout out to all those 42 guests that made our show spectacular in 2020. Pay it forward is one of our mottos. We also want to thank all of our viewers for making those 34 weeks enjoyable, as we are excited and happy to be back for another great season. Now, we want you to stay on Facebook Live after John closes our show today and join our MasterCoaches Buzz Reaction for an opportunity to hear and engage in our most recent talks, as well as enjoying our new format. Now, let's go to our Buzz and Buzz Reaction partner, Dr. John Foreman, who will update us on his most recent project. John?
Thanks, Ruth. I love how the doctor thing is sneaking in there now. I've been a doctor for almost 5 years. Almost 5 years.
Well, I'm going to
hardly anybody ever says it. But I was actually just thinking recently, I'm teaching a sports marketing class this year. I'm like, should I have the students call me doctor or professor or just coach? Whichever one's easier. But anyway, upcoming on the content side on coaching volleyball. The podcast is rolling. We're up over a dozen episodes now. So I think the next one that'll come out on Sunday, which is already hit for patrons, is a discussion of how long practices should be. And I just recorded yesterday a couple more for the couple weeks down the road with my friend Alex Porter at the University of Essex, who's also been on some of the prior coaching conversations. So we had a couple of good talks on that. So you can check that stuff out on the blog at coachingvb.com, or go to, obviously on the Facebook page, on Twitter, CoachingVB. So with that, we'll roll on to the Buzz Reaction and hope we get this technology stuff right.
Okay, John, you and I are working together on this. All right. And I promise I'm not going to blare things out here. Now,
hang on, Ruth.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm pretty quick here.
Yeah, you're full screen.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You want to see what I did today? Maybe?
Yeah, I need to pin you first.
Yeah. You better
Spotlight.
do that.
Okay.
You're
spotlighted now. There we go.
All right. Now, today's Buzz Reaction. As we mentioned, this after show will begin having guests later this month. Today, however, let's take a sneak peek at what we would be exposed to when you have customized a Master Coaches clinic, whether it be virtually or in person. Let's take a peek at Mick, Bob, Brian, and Ruth in action.
You really have trouble taking the ball there. That's why we'd like to have the middle person take that. I know when he hits there, or you have to get up here closer where you can transfer.
Now step, let's go this way. Step. Now, if it's from the knee or below, we can start to manipulate the ball.
Just a step and a hop. So it's just going to be a step and hop. This is probably the most efficient, movement you can make to adjust in a medium distance.
Get our quarter turn. Got your quarter turn. Now let's talk about lift. You can start either down or you can start in a nice relaxed position. I think it's easier here because when you do this, you dip.
Wow. There you have it. How about that? A truly one-of-a-kind customized virtual clinic designed for your specific organization. Now we're going to hear from Nick and Bob. We are now into the Buzz Reaction. And John, thank you for patience. Now you know how big my screen is and what I have on it, right?
Yeah, actually, before we get into the Buzz, we do have actually a couple of comments.
Oh,
but,
okay.
But they're topical, so I can throw them in when we get back to talking to NIL, if that's what we're going to do, and also on the scheduling side of things for men and women.
All right.
So I don't,
Good job.
Yeah, right now I just want to talk about how Mick really enjoyed that music you had there, Ruth. I was watching his hands.
I was ready to go. I had the beat. I was going for it. But I like these characters behind Ruth's head here. I want to see those people in action. There's some new faces back there that I haven't seen.
She actually gave me more hair.
I know. You must have been a good boy for Christmas. No coal in your sock.
Now, well, hey, look, I gave him a nice mustache too, though. Hey, John, I got John in there. John didn't even recognize he was in there. He's up in the corner wondering what the heck we're doing.
Yeah, I'm not.
Right.
I don't have the color scheme that everybody else does, so I kind of faded into the background a bit.
Yeah, well, that's all right. All right, you
Well,
two.
you're camouflaged.
That's right. There you go.
All right, Nick.
Yeah, we should go back to Bob. You cut him off there in the discussion because we ran out of time, but he had some more to say, I think, about the convention. He was going on. Did you want to finish your comments there, Bob?
Yeah, thanks, Mick. There was one other thought, and you started to allude to it a little bit. You know, as I started looking at the blocking, all right, and I looked at other people and how they presented the blocking, and you know, I think the important thing for anybody that's, you know, coming to our clinics or watching our show or going to the AVCA, you know, virtual clinic, you know, you listen to 4 or 5 different people on the topic, and I think what's important is you got to draw out what you think is the best, all right, of all those people, and that becomes the way you're going to do it, and just have a method to your madness, as you had said. And you can get that by gleaning the most important things and the things that kind of fit into your thought process as a coach, so that when you present it to your athletes understand that, hey, this is the way we're doing it. And I think that's really kind of key when you're studying the game.
And you want each one of the words you use to generate a picture, so you don't talk so much. You can use singular words to get the picture. And you can emphasize those pictures by actually having a physical picture out of the net when you're blocking, or looking over at the video on the side to see if you executed it right. But what you're trying to do is cut down anything probably that confuses the learner and gets a chance for them to copy that picture and get right what you're trying to teach. Is that kind of the way it works?
Yeah, that's exactly the right idea, the right point. I mean, I really like Jamie Morrison's presentation because it was done very professionally. But for example, to your point, he had maybe 8 or 9 keys as compared to me having, you know, 4 or 5 keys. I think the fewer keys, the better picture you can present with the words or the phrase you use. It really helps the learner get a picture in their mind of what's really most important.
Well, the other thing too is that when you're doing a training session, you don't have to stop. You can say the keyword out loud and everybody knows exactly the keyword and what it means. So all of your practices and training sessions are going to be more effective and efficient in all that you do, whether it's playing or whether it's drills.
Ruth, you're 100% correct there. I actually I'll take it one step further, and maybe, the purpose of or benefit of like, say, having our clinic come to a club, because then you can get a terminology of keys that all across your whole club, all the coaches can use the same keys. It doesn't mean you can't go into depth individually with athletes, but at least everybody's speaking with the same, key words and the same phrases, and it just really helps, the athletes learn in a program.
Let me ask something to both you guys, which I think is important. I love analogies. I go to a restaurant. I don't want 3 choices, okay? I want 8 or 9 choices because I want to pick something that really relates to me. So now coaches and high school coaches, club coaches, college coaches, they can have us actually do a specific menu of what they want done. They don't have to go to a generic clinic. They're going to create their own customized clinic. I mean, when have you ever heard of that? You go to a clinic and these are the things that are presented, but you are picking the things that you want presented for your own coaches or your players or your club.
Yeah, you can do an in-system clinic where you just talk about the serve receive, the set, and the attack. Or you can do an out-of-system clinic where you're talking about net defense first, the blocking, then the dig, and then the transition to attack. You could break it down that way as well, or you could just design this for the strengths or weaknesses of your club, your high school team, or your college team. We've been doing some of that for a number of people right now and trying to emphasize how to learn quicker. But I have to say again, with Bob's analogy, we've been doing this for about 40 years, trying to get the simplest word to get the best picture of what we want to get accomplished so we don't have to talk as much. So if I can use feet to the ball, for instance, as a phrase to make sure they understand that we want to get the feet to the ball before they jump to attack. And we have a picture of that they can then go to. The learning speeds up unbelievably fast. And copying, I'll tell you what, learners, there are 8 out of 10 learners learn by copying. 2 can process words and transform them into what you're trying to get accomplished. And every once in a while, there's 1 that only learns that way. But basically, you're servicing 4/5 of your athletes with pictures if you can get the right picture for them to copy and get the skill the way you want it.
So if I'm out there and I'm a high school coach and I already have my system, offensive system and defensive system already designed, is there something that you could help me with as a high school coach? Or I'm thinking I don't need anybody to help because I already have my offense and defense. But I think a lot of times coaches forget that there's so many other things. It's not a question of us coming in and changing. It's coming in, adapting, analyzing, and capitalize on what they're doing and adding new things. Is that correct?
Yeah, and here's a weakness of our game right now, at least at the D1 level. Less than 50% of the D1 coaches signed up for the virtual convention.
Whoa.
And that is a fact. The coaches that were really interested were D2, D3, club, high school that really wanted this. Yet we had Olympic coaches, some of the best teachers in the world in this virtual convention. And it seemed like people were doing exactly what you just expressed. I have my systems, I have my players, I'm going to be as good as that allows me to be. But where you really get over the hump is when you refine the techniques so that in your transition game, for instance, the dig isn't to the outside perimeter of the court. The dig's always on the 3-meter line or within 5 feet of the 3-meter line because your technique is so good that you can get it there 4 out of 5 times. When I coached Natalie Haglund, for instance, our dig to kill ratio, meaning every time we dug a ball and set it to a hitter, we had a certain percentage kill. And that dig to kill, when Natalie dug, we had 38% dig to kill. That means almost 4 out of 10 balls were killed. And that doesn't take into the quality of the set, whether the setter set it or another back row person set it or the middle blocker set it. So you start looking at the refining of your skills, and then that's how it makes your systems better. And sometimes you can apply your skill to a system. For instance, Bob made a statement to me when I sent him the video of some of our players blocking. He said, "My goodness, you guys never block line." He said, "Well, actually, we did block line with our feet, but we blocked across court with our hands." And he looked at me a little bit like, "Oh, maybe that might be something we could try." So there are little differences that you can put in if you learn how to take the skill and apply it to your system, for instance. And I'm sure Bob would have some examples of how he does other things with his blocking. But
I got a question for Bob.
Go for
Bob,
it.
you're doing an adult clinic, correct? This weekend?
This weekend, yeah. We're doing
now tell me this. I know what I tell my 3- and 5-year-olds. Are you saying the same keywords to adults? Because it seems like people think you don't need keywords when you get older.
No, actually, the adults, interesting enough, because this is an adult camp that we're actually doing in New Jersey. They're starving for instruction. You know, for the most part, they haven't gone through the collegiate system and gotten trained. A lot of them picked up the game, you know, because volleyball is a lifetime sport.
Right.
You know, they picked it up later in life. And now they're just looking for some instruction to improve their skill. So actually answering your question, we use the same keywords, whether we're working with, you know, middle school kids or whether we're working with adults. It doesn't change the skill. All right. And the difference is the adults can actually, you know, hear what you're saying, understand what you're saying, and get that picture a little bit quicker.
Yeah, it's all about getting the picture to them, right? Whether
it's all about getting the picture to them.
6-year-olds or 60-year-olds, you want to get the picture to them.
Okay, so what do you two think about analyzing your own skills as a player? Do you think that that's critical to be able to do that?
Well, one of the reasons that I had my players always work my camps, and it wasn't the reasons that some people say, you know, that you're forcing your players to work their camps, yada, yada, yada. It was so if I could get my players to be able to teach the skill to a youngster, then I knew they could analyze their own skills when they couldn't get the individual attention of the coaches all the time. So they could go home and watch the game on TV being replayed, because all of our matches were replayed, and then they could analyze how they can improve their skill. And you get that when they have to think about, they're with 8 youngsters. Usually we have one coach per 8 players in the camp. They're with 8 youngsters. They're teaching serve receive or serve reception. And now they're seeing a player that doesn't do it very well, and they've got to make some verbal correction that gets the picture right. So they have to analyze what they think they see is not happening. And then that translates. That all at once is buy-in. And once you get buy-in from an athlete, she or he's all about improving themselves also.
Yeah, Bob, how about you?
Well, I could tell you some stories, you know, that are real stories, that are accurate, that you know, basically reinforce what Mick just said. I mean, I'll never forget, I had Raz DeRoche and Max Jante, both All-Americans. But prior to becoming All-Americans, when I was coaching at Rutgers, they came to do camp with me all summer for a year. And of course, they're in front of high school girls for the most part, and they wanted to make sure they demonstrated perfectly, and they followed exactly the keys, and they did it perfect. And you know, a year later, I remember Roz coming up to me and saying, "Coach, you know, I would have never taken the time to work on my individual skills the way I had to do it through camp. And because of that, I became an All-American, because he got so much better at what he was doing." I had a women's team that I used to take. It was a Division III team that I was coaching, you know, at the same time I was doing a Division I men's. And I'd bring them to my high school camp, and they would train for that week of camp. They were actually in camp. And every year we did that, we won the conference championship. My AD said, "Well, why are you going to this high school camp with these college kids?" I said, "Because I could never get these Division III girls to put in 8 hours a day of volleyball. I'm getting to do it for a whole week." All right. Every year we did that, we won the conference championship. I mean, it really does make a difference.
How much of a sense of humor do you think you have to have when you're teaching?
Well, I could probably use a better sense of humor. I just want to teach them. I just want them to get better.
Okay, Mick, how about you?
I think you have to have a sense of humor, but not so much that it breaks their focus or concentration.
Sure. Okay.
But that it makes it fun.
Okay.
Like you can poke fun at yourself, or maybe you slipped on a word or something. You can poke fun at that. They lets them relax. It's not about talking about the learner necessarily. It's just a relaxed situation, so they're not intimidated or inhibited to really try and execute the skill. I was going to say one last thing about what Bob was talking about when he took his men's players out. I find the men's players are more often more difficult to get to break down a skill because they're so physical. They can jump so high. They don't need precision, so to speak. In their minds, they just want to get up and club it and get it over with, right? But when Salinger took over the Dutch national team, that he taught defense to 7-footers who were playing the game, is when the Dutch, following his time there with I've forgotten the coach.
92 Olympic Games.
Yeah, but I can't remember the coach's name. He did a clinic that I was really impressed with. Anyway, he won the gold medal with the Dutch, but it was Salinger's teaching of defense and the players that got them to the point where they could compete for world championship and Olympic gold. So I can't tell you enough. I mean, we didn't have to do this for 40 years to figure this out, but unfortunately it's taken us 40 years, and we're back to that point again where we think for the game to improve, we've got to get this teaching to be better. We've got to be more specific about the skill execution, and then the systems and all the stuff you want to do. Deborah will talk about this, how she just wants to put in some new systems. She doesn't want to mess around about how do you pass serve, but that's where you win or lose, really, to tell you the truth. And so I can't say enough and back up what Bob and you were saying about this. And I know if Brian were here, he would be all over this because he really believes this, and that's why his Long Beach teams were so fun to watch also.
Okay, so Bob told the story, so I'm telling a story.
Go for it.
Former 84 Olympic player, Rose Major's pal. She played in Japan 9 years, played for NEC, and then switched over to Daiei when Ari was there and actually coached and played. But we were at a clinic after the 84 Olympics, and we started in Louisiana in my van, packed with like what we used to do, balls and shoes and everything. We're going to take a trip all the way across Texas. And then we end up in Phoenix, Arizona at Yavapai Junior College. I remember the exact, and I hated overnight because there were too many times you had to supervise people. So we're on the court, and Rose comes over and says, you know what, you need to come over and help me with Sarah, with her serving. I said, sure, I'll come over. So I went over, and she goes, Ruth, she keeps stepping with her right foot and keeps serving the ball. And I said, does it go over the net? And I said, okay. So I went over to Sarah, and I says, move up, Sarah. Can you move up? Let's go to the attack line. She didn't get it over the first time. She goes, but if I put my right foot forward, I'll hit it. And I said, Sarah, just try this one more time. She did it up. She served it over the net, step left, backed up, continued. And she says, and I said, okay, now you're good with it, right? She said, yes. But she goes, Coach Nelson, I don't think you read the book right. And I said, I wrote the book, Sarah. So my statement would be, coaches, sometimes you might not know the answer, and it's okay to say that you're going to investigate or research, but you've got to be quick, because nowadays, and I can tell you working with 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds, they will ask you anything. So I wrote the book. All right, so my story. John, we better go to John. He has 2 questions, I think.
All right, well, one is more of a comment on the NIL, suggesting that we check out the post-game app, which is already ranking athletes by their, I guess, their NIL capacity.
Or their NIL ability to generate revenue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is that the one that is only iPhone compatible?
I'm not sure.
There's one, it's only iPhone compatible, one of them. But go ahead, John, sorry.
All right. The other one was from frequent watcher, Dave Bose, he's no longer on with us because apparently he had to go golfing.
Oh.
But before he went, he posed the questions: how do coaches like John Foreman make a living if men and women are playing in the same season? So I would actually be really interested to get the perspective of Nikki from McKendree, because she's got both in Division II, which suggests to me a more intense schedule. In my case, and there's a couple other teams in my conference that are in a similar situation. This is Division III. Our conference has said, no, we're not having a season this year. Not a conference season. So teams are allowed to schedule up to 6 non-conference matches. I mean, it can be against conference teams. It's just not going to count to anything. So, you know, the season that we're going to have is going to be highly abbreviated, whereas the men's season is going to be something closer to normal. Now, that's still obviously a lot of time in the gym for whatever coach that is, potentially, depending on staffing situations. So I don't, yeah, it's going to be fun.
Well, you know what? I'd respond to that, and I don't coach either, but I'm going to say if COVID continues, you won't have to do either one.
This is true.
You better be good on your online, and you better be on Zoom, and let's see what kind of culture you get to create. Maybe the culture needs to be between the guys and the girls on Zoom.
I already got that working.
Yeah,
they rip on each other back and forth all the time.
All right, good job.
No problems.
And Bob, that would have been a great question for you to ask. That would have been a great question for you to ask John Cook when he was advocating for a spring season.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there was definitely pluses and minuses to his presentation. I thought just the fact that, you know, he as a volleyball coach thinking about, you know, things outside of the gym, I thought was, you know, pretty significant, and he presented it pretty well. But I think that, you know, getting back to what John was saying, you know, and Ruth was, you know, talking about from a more positive note, you know, we are going to move forward from this pandemic, and we are going to have a season. It's just, you're just going to have to be really flexible because things are going to change. I mean, we see it happen right now. I mean, things changed just this week where we actually got answers to some questions, and by next week, those answers are going to change to a different answer. But we'll just have to make it through.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you guys think about the last thing? And that is, so now in the junior clubs, they're trying to utilize the city facilities for COVID testing so that their kids in their junior club team now have been COVID tested so they can continue to play. Now, what's that going to do to the overload in the places that are giving free testing? Now that's.
Well, I think from volleyball standpoint, the more testing you can get, the better off. And I would advocate it. I just think we have to make testing available to everybody as much as we can. Mm-hmm. And sure, you don't want to abuse it because there are working people that have to get out there and earn a living. But, you know, club volleyball is functioning, and I'd rather have it functioning with testing and safety protocols in there because we just don't know the answers to some of these questions. And it's not about surviving the virus. It's what the virus does to your body after it gets you. So those are the questions that aren't answered yet. And that's why the testing is so important. And that's why we should advocate that. And that's a good point by you for sure.
What's your protocol? Bob, what's your protocol going to be?
Well, we're going to test at least once a week because we're going to actually mask for practice and games. So we lower our level from a high risk sport to a medium risk sport.
Right.
But, you know, testing at the university is happening, you know, all over now. Testing outside. I just got a test today, you know, at the Walgreens up the street. I mean, it's no problem getting tests anymore. What we really need to start doing is getting that vaccine out because it's a distribution problem at this point. Mm-hmm. And I think the testing is really starting to happen. So that's a good thing.
Okay, so I want to talk about those people that are interested in coming on the Buzz Reaction. They can go directly to www.volleyballmastercoaches.com and they can sign up for our newsletter, which is free. And we'll take a look at those, correct, Bob? Is that what we're doing? We're taking a look at those?
Yeah, we'll take a look at those all the time and see who has, you know, in the order they come in will be the order that they'll be asked to be on the show.
Okay, so we're not having a draft?
I don't know if we'll have a draft or a lottery. No.
Okay.
I like the lottery idea. I think we ought to have a lottery.
All right. So we're doing that. And then we want to encourage the viewers. So if you've been viewing or you view later and you weren't live today, hurry up to volleyballmastercoaches.com and sign up because Mr. Bob Bertucci is going to be looking at the list that comes in, and you want to be at the top of the list, not like Nick and I are for vaccine at 68,762.
And Brian's going to make sure that people aren't just picked from the Midwest or Texas or the East Coast, he's going to get West Coast people on there.
That's right. He's got his scale, right? He said, this is the way it's going to be. This many here, this many here.
That's right.
Hey, wonderful show today, you guys.
Yeah, it was fun. I hope it was informative. And now we're going to get informed by the people we're going to start bringing on, because we got some great people coming on, and we got some play coming up. I think, what's the start, Ruth?
22nd.
22nd. We have collegiate play starting. Bob, when's the men start?
Well, it could start the 22nd, and some teams are starting then. The majority of the conferences are starting the first weekend in February, Division I. Division III, John was saying, was starting the week after.
And how about Sam? How about Sam?
Oh, Sam, good question.
John, that was your topic.
Sam, I think, is the same schedule. They're doing the same schedule as they had. Hasn't changed. They're outdoors. It's a little easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We're off, huh?
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for joining.
All right. So is our recording ended?
It is.